Hello, this is Leah Whitehorse from Astrology with the cosmic forecast for April 2015. So we're almost there now. We've had some very intense astrological goings on with the Uranus-Pluto square, but we've got one more thing to go, and this is the lunar eclipse, which is going to be on the 4th of April in Libra, and it's at 14 degrees of Libra, so it's opposing Uranus and square to Pluto. Now, generally speaking, the lunar eclipse is basically an amped up full moon. So at full moon, emotions are heightened. Full moons bring culmination, conclusion, or they sometimes reach a crisis point. And the eclipse intensifies this. And then it's intensified again because it's square to Pluto, and Pluto does things intensely. So even though the Uranus-Pluto square is on the wane, it's reactivated by this eclipse. Eclipses, when they hit a point in the chart that's already being activated by other transits, they tend to trigger that transit into action. A little bit like Mars. When Mars passes over a point that's being activated, Mars will bring that to life, and it's very much like that with an eclipse. An eclipse can reveal something about that transit. So this eclipse is square to Pluto. And that means we've got tension, we've got passion, we've got a feeling of holding on. And with Uranus in the mix, so Uranus is opposite to the moon, it kind of feels like there's a push-pull effect going on. Kind of like when you have a piece of wire and you bend it backwards and forwards over and over, and the center of it starts to heat up, and then suddenly that wire snaps. That's a little bit like this lunar eclipse. Something may break, something may snap under pressure, and this isn't the time to fix it. It's time to recognize what's broken and just bin it. This is what Pluto is asking us to do. Bin it. Because Pluto wants to eliminate what isn't working for you anymore, and that creates space to allow things in that are going to empower you. It releases an enormous amount of energy which can then be reworked and reformed, reforming coming from Uranus. Mercury in the eclipse chart is also conjunct to the South Node, so this is about letting go of old thought patterns. What you knew no longer applies. It's what you know now that's important. The Sabian symbol for this eclipse is circular paths, and you might feel like you're going around in circles. That's one way of looking at it. But it's a cycle. It's remembering it's a cycle. You're part of this wonderful, great cosmic story that's going on. Now, the eclipse is also sextile to Jupiter, so it's showing there are opportunities for expansion and understanding which lead to a renewed sense of faith. Now, last October, we had another eclipse. The lunar eclipse was in Aries, and I think that was at 15 degrees of Aries. So it's just opposite, or was just opposite to where this eclipse is in April. So what you might find is that the issues that arose back in October might be revisited by this April lunar eclipse, and the purpose of that is to bring it to a conclusion, or bring those things to a point where there is closure. And what this does, bearing in mind that this lunar eclipse is in Libra, is it brings things back into balance. So in a way, this lunar eclipse is rather like the final revelation. Jupiter stations direct on the 8th of April, and it's like he takes all of the understanding that he learned during the eclipse, during the lunar eclipse that was sextile to Jupiter, and he brings it your way. He brings that understanding your way, along with opportunities, new possibilities, the openings, the idea that things are opening up in front of you. Look to the house that Jupiter is transiting in your chart, because then you can discover the area of life where you have these openings. In this area of life you're developing, you need to develop, you need to engage with Jupiter in this house. He doesn't give you things on a plate, even though he's in Leo at the moment. So he's a creative helper that you've got working for you, but he's not a puppet master. You have to actually go up to Jupiter and say, yes, I want to expand in this area of my life. What do I need to do? So it's getting involved. And it's also just having a really optimistic outlook that this part of your life can be expanded upon, and that it will bring you benefits further down the line. Black Moon Lilith is going to be starting a dance with the North Node, and this is going to start on the 10th of April. Now, to be clear, I use the True Node and True Black Moon Lilith. Some people use the Mean Node and Mean Black Moon Lilith. I have written an article on my website. I'll put the link actually in the box underneath this video on the difference between True Lilith and Mean Lilith and what that actually means. But just so that you know, so that some people aren't wondering why I'm talking about this conjunction when it isn't going to happen for a while with the mean points. True Lilith is going to be dancing with the North Node, and she's going to make 11 conjunctions to the North Node over the coming year. And to me, Lilith is your wild inner core. She's highly intuitive and instinctive. And in the myths, she knew the name of God, so she's extremely powerful. She has an extremely powerful energy. And she also knows where to draw the line. And I found that she can be associated with ghosts and spirits of the departed. I've seen people who've had dreams about spirits. Lilith can be very active in the chart at the time, or if they've seen a spirit, Lilith is often there. Now, with it being 11 conjunctions, I was thinking about the meaning of 11. This is a master number, and it relates to the Justice card in the tarot, and this is about truth. So there's something here with Black Moon Lilith and the North Node. There's something here about facing and exorcising old ghosts, old demons, in order to reveal some further truths. It's also about knowing where and when to draw the line so that you can protect and also enable your spiritual and personal growth. The number 11 is also associated with spiritual enlightenment. So I think this is going to be an interesting interplay over the next year. Venus moves into Gemini on the 11th of April. So this makes it a perfect time for socializing. Venus in Gemini really does like to keep things light. She's a social butterfly when she goes through this sign. She's catching up on gossip, wants to know all the news, and variety is the spice of life. You might be more attracted to what people say. You want to make a mental connection with Venus moving through Gemini. Maybe you don't want to take things too seriously, you don't want things that are too heavy, you just want some fun, a good time out. This transit is really nice for spending time with friends and acquaintances, good conversation, all that kind of thing. And if things have been feeling dull for a while, then it's the best time to go out and make new connections. Mercury is going to move into Taurus on the 14th of April. So this is interesting. We've got Venus in Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini, and Mercury in Taurus, and Venus rules Taurus. So each of them are in each other's signs, and that is called mutual reception. Planets in mutual reception have got a special understanding with each other. Each planet receives the other into its home. It's kind of like a welcome guest. Venus is welcoming Mercury and Mercury is welcoming Venus. When planets are in mutual reception, they look to each other for help. Technically speaking, in a birth chart, a mutual reception isn't kind of so effective unless those planets are in a major aspect to each other. But I tend to note it anyway, because I think those planets do have this sense of understanding each other. They know where each other are coming from. So what we've got going on here is that Venus is attracted to all these pretty shiny things while she's going through Gemini. Mercury is looking to Venus for some advice and some guidance and some help. Mercury in Taurus tends to think very slowly. It mulls things over, kind of like a cow chewing the cud. It's solid, sensible, dependable thinking. But it can also get stuck in a rut, get into certain grooves and patterns of thoughts, and doesn't want to get out of those patterns. Mercury then is helped by Venus, because Venus is happily flitting from one thing to another, and oh, it's really interesting. So it keeps Mercury on his toes. It provides new information for Mercury to ponder. In turn, Mercury will keep Venus from getting too flighty, which is a trouble with Venus in Gemini, helping her to stick with something long enough for it to gain, for her to gain something useful out of it. So it's an interesting interplay between these two planets, and this is going to last until the end of the month. The 18th of April sees Mars in Taurus squaring up to Jupiter in Leo. And there's a variety of ways that this can manifest. Positively speaking, Mars is motivation and energy levels, and Jupiter is opportunity. So you may be feeling incredibly optimistic. The world's wonderful, you're on top of the world, you can take on the world. But the problem is that you can get in over your head when these two get into a square. There's a tendency to be overly optimistic, and as a consequence you take on too much. Don't overestimate yourself. Just basically take your time. Mars is in Taurus, so Taurus is a slow sign. So allow things to unfold. It's great to get excited, no problem with that, but just take your time before you take on too much. Working at its most negative, this square can produce behavior which is very posturing. It's the big I am, it's arrogant, it's the know-it-all, which can be really infuriating. And if you come up against this kind of energy, then the best thing to do is take it with a pinch of salt. It is not worth getting angry about. Also, on the 18th of April, busy day in the skies, we've got a new moon in Aries. And this moon isn't aspected to the rest of the charts, just the sun and the moon together in Aries. Now, bear in mind, we've got Mars, ruler of Aries, who's just joined up in a square to Jupiter. So all of those cautions that I mentioned, I feel apply because we have this unaspected moon. It makes it feel a little bit more wild, a little bit more feisty. Now, usually the Aries new moon is really, really great for planting seeds of intention. So the big thing here is not to plant so many that you can't possibly finish everything. Aries has a propensity for starting lots of things, for getting really, really excited about them, and then can't be bothered finishing them. And I know this because I've got lots of Aries in my chart. The Sabian symbol for this new moon is the music of the sphere. It's a beautiful symbol which reminds you that even though it doesn't matter what else is going on, we have this beautiful perfection that is emanating through the universe. There is a pattern, there is a tune, there is a song, and you have your own song. You have your own rhythm, and this harmonizes with the great song of the universe. Now, if things seem a little bit discordant to you, then look to where your motivations and alliances may be out of line with your own personal integrity. The Sun moves into Taurus on the 20th of April, which, by the way, is my birthday. So now we're moving into a more grounded sense of reality. Taurus is earthy, it's creative, warm, it's receptive. So if you look to where the Sun is traveling in your chart, which house it's moving through, this is where you need to tend your metaphorical garden. Can be the actual garden as well. Basically, where Taurus is in your chart, the house that has Taurus on the cusp, but this is where you need to approach life in a creative way, but also in a sensible way. It's about being resourceful, it's about being practical and sensible. Generally, with the Sun in Taurus, this can be a perfect time to get out into the countryside and get back to nature, because this can have a very restorative effect on your mind, body and soul. Take a more laid-back approach to life. Taurus doesn't like to rush. I am Taurus, and I know that for a fact. Don't like to rush anything. Make time to smell the roses. Mars in Taurus is going to enter into a trine with Pluto in Capricorn. That's going to be on the 21st of April. Now, bearing in mind that Mars is still square to Jupiter, this could play out in a couple of ways. At its worst, it means that it takes this flowing energy from Pluto, which is shooting up to Mars, and it kind of feels like there's nothing stopping it. So this could manifest as people trying to force their views upon you. The force is coming from Pluto. Mars is the warrior, and Jupiter is about beliefs and morality and judgment, judgmental opinions, this kind of thing. So even though it's a trine, it can manifest in some difficult ways, and it can be a bit volatile. But that said, on a personal level, this trine and this configuration with Mars, Jupiter and Pluto, it basically could represent a real injection of determination and will when it comes to pursuing your own goals, and also for fighting for what's right for you. Look to where Mars is traveling in your chart, because this is what's being energized right now, and maybe this is what you're fighting for. Look to where Pluto is. This is where you're being empowered through a process of transformation. And as I mentioned earlier, look for where Jupiter is to show you where you're expanding your understanding and where you're developing. This Mars trine to Pluto is in earthy signs. We've got Mars in Taurus, Pluto in Capricorn. So this gives you endurance and patience and stamina. And just if you just visualize a bull and how powerful that animal is, then you can get a feel of what this energy is like. It's perfect for long-term projects and something that needs a great deal of work. So whether it's writing a book or doing complete renovation of your home, whatever the energy is being used for, you can have faith that you will be able to complete that project or change your life, whatever you want to do with this powerful energy. So this month I chose the Mythic deck, and the card that came out was the 10 of Pentacles, and this really puts me in the mind of the Sun going into Taurus, Mars in Taurus, Mars trining Pluto in Capricorn. There's a real earthiness to this card, and being a Pentacles card, it relates to the earth element. You can see that we've got an elderly man. He's sat on a chair with a little baby on his lap. We've got a mature lady stood beside him, and then there is a young man, a young person at the base of the card, sitting on the ground playing with a toy horse. So what we've got here is all stages of life. We've got infancy, youth, maturity and old age. This family scene is framed by, we've got these columns going down the sides of the card. which seem very solid, and it's got pentacles, coins, money hanging from these columns. And woven around these columns are vines, heavy with fruit, heavy with grapes, ready to be turned into wine. Behind the family is calm water, calm blue lake perhaps is behind them, and also rolling hills, green hills. It's got a really lush and rich feel to this card. And it's rich financially, but it's also rich emotionally as well. Often when I get this card in a reading, I notice that it can come up to represent changes around work. Very often it's a step up in some way, so it can be a promotion or a new job that pays better or has better benefits for some reason or another. And it can also come up for a job change that's somehow connected to a change of home. Sometimes it's a requirement that you need to change your home in order to take the job. Or it might be that because you've now got a new job, you have more funds available and now you can make that move that you wanted to make. So there's a couple of different ways it can come up. Essentially though, it really is a card of feeling content and very secure on a worldly and earthly level. But on a deeper level, this card is asking, what do you want to leave behind? What's your legacy going to be? Have you made a will? Will you give your money to charity? But more than money, this is about what mark do you want to make on the world to say that you were here? Maybe it's the stories that you tell your children, or maybe it's the morals that you instill in them. Maybe it's a business that you leave to them. Maybe it's your novel or your painting or your piece of music that you composed. Maybe that's what will live on after you. This card reminds you that you're here and that what you do here matters, and it matters for future generations. With Mars trine to Pluto this month, it motivates you to create something of lasting gain and to be aware that what you do here counts.